Okay, we have Mr. Wayne Guzzardo.
Good morning. I certainly appreciate y'all letting us come and finally say what's happening.
Can you come a little bit closer to that microphone?
Up until now, we've been silent. We haven't been able to say too much, and we appreciate y'all at least listening to us. This is my daughter, Stephanie Guzzardo. My daughter was 27 years old, beautiful young woman. She took pride in her life. She set goals, and at a very young age, she achieved most of those goals. She was happy, she was successful in her work, and in her everyday life. She had a smile that would light up a room. And when she left that room, she was going to make sure she knew the majority of the people there, and that they were happy. She was our pride and joy. We were very, very proud of her. She was her mother's best friend, and she was my baby girl. We miss her very much. On November the 19th of 1995, at 9:47 a.m. on a Sunday morning, Todd Wessinger rode his bicycle to Calendar's restaurant and hid in the bushes. He went there with an intent to rob and to kill. 3 days before then, he had made a practice run, so he knew what he was doing. He waited in the bushes. My daughter was the manager on duty. She had gotten there at 7 in the morning, and she was preparing the bank deposits. The bartender would come in 9:30, 9:15 to get things ready. Well, Wessinger waited in the bushes until he arrived. When he opened the door, Wessinger shot him in the back, walked over, looked at him to make sure he was dead, and asked for my daughter, another employee run by where's Stephanie. Stephanie was in a 6-by-6-foot office, one way in, one way out. And instead of running, to this day, I still get mad at her for not running. Instead of running, she called 911 to get help for the boy that was shot. He didn't die. He lived. Wessinger walked into the office, demanded money. She gave him the money. She was still on 911, begging for her life, pleading for her life. He shot her in cold blood and killed her. On his way out, a cook had been hiding in the freezer. When he heard him shoot Stephanie, he panicked and he ran. And he ran out the back door. And Wessinger shot him in the back for the hell of it. Just for the thrill. Shot the man down in cold blood. He was no threat to Wessinger whatsoever. The last few minutes of my daughter's life were terrifying. It took her 14 seconds to pass. You want to know what 14 seconds is like? I'm going to let you know. That was 14 seconds that my daughter was suffering. We thought that this couldn't happen to us. We just thought it happened to everybody else. Well, believe me, it happened to us, and it can happen to every one of you. Don't ever think it can't. We come from a good family. We was raised right. We were very successful people. It can happen to you. Don't think it can't. Wessinger was on the run for 9 days and was apprehended in Garland, Texas. In 1997, Wessinger was tried and convicted of 2 counts of capital murder. He was sentenced to death. He was sent to Angola, and when he returned for his first set of appeals, had 2 teardrops under his eye, indicating that he had murdered 2 people and he was proud of it, and he was never remorseful. So that ought to tell you what kind of people we're dealing with. And again, he planned this. It just didn't come to his head that morning. He planned it. It's been 23 years, 2 months, 12 days, and 9 hours since my daughter was murdered. My wife and I attended every appeal, approximately 15. From 15 appellate courts in Baton Rouge, in New Orleans, and finally to the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. We went everywhere except Washington Court. We didn't go to Washington. We followed these appeals that were ridiculous. You can't imagine some of the excuses we heard. But needless to say, went all the way to the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. The Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. voted 8-1 to uphold his execution. 8-1 to uphold it. I'd never want, just like Jess said, I would never want to see an innocent person convicted or executed if the evidence was even questionable. Time after time, Westringer was proven guilty through every appeal, and over and over and over again, he was proved beyond a doubt that he committed this murder and needed to be executed. For over 20 years this went on. Then, after the ruling from the final appeal, we thought that my daughter was finally going to get justice, and a date for the execution was in sight. Then John Bell turned his back on my daughter. Just by coincidence, a few weeks after the 8-1 decision, John Bell sent Jeffrey Corey, a state attorney, to Judge Shelley Dix, to place a moratorium on the death penalty. We were supposed to be at a hearing that following Tuesday morning. My wife and I was notified we were going to be there. The day before that happened, John Bell slipped in the back door and pulled this on his own.
Mr. Guzzardo, all due respect, and I'm on your side, but Governor Edwards.
Not mine.
Well, he's the governor of the state, so let's show respect.
It's going to be very hard. That happened on, and it was in a news article on July the 20th. This took place one day before we were there. My wife and I were to attend. I guess the governor was not going to take any chances. Judge Dick signed his request, and the moratorium was put in place until July of 2019. The governor states that he cannot find a drug to take the place of the drug that the manufacturer refuses to sell for purpose of execution. It's impossible to find a drug. It's impossible to find a substitute when you don't want to. Texas, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Missouri, Ohio, Virginia were in the same situation as Louisiana. They found a drug. They found a solution and are carrying out executions without any problems whatsoever. He blamed the legislature. He blamed y'all at first, as this first article that came out, for not producing an alternative source. If this is true, I'd like to know why not. I hope and pray that it's not because there's an election coming up. I hope to God that's not the case. But we're tired. We're tired of being overlooked. And we just want the help. We just need your help. We're at our wits' ends. We need to do your duty as elected officials and help solve this situation. He also blamed James LeBlanc, the head of DOC. It's impossible to find a drug when on a newspaper, when an article on July the 24th, 2018, LeBlanc stated that Governor Edwards told him not to pursue the drug or anything else to do with the execution.
Don't you let the...
She can ask anything she likes.
No. I really don't like interrupting victims, but if it's a point of order question, I'll let you ask it. All right, Ms. Norton.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I have the correct understanding here, and my heart goes out to all of the family. But I keep hearing the governor this, the governor that. I wasn't under the impression that this meeting was about us bringing the governor down, but telling about how these families feel and what happened and the
Representative Norton, I think that's exactly what Mr. Guzzardo is doing, and we're going to let him do that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Stated to John that Governor Edwards told him not to pursue the drug or anything else involving. He then blamed Jeff Landry, the Attorney General, on July the 18th, 2018, and on July the 4th, on 2018. Jeff Landry sent him possible solutions. He never responded. All he ever gave was excuses. By sending Jeff Cody to get the moratorium, by telling James LeBlanc not to pursue the drug, but not working with the Attorney General for solutions, and quote, as a Catholic Christian and teaching of the church and guidance from the Pope are always of great importance to me. Come on now. We finally know where he stands by his words and by his actions, that he is against the death penalty. What we want to know now is why he won't answer us. He ran on a platform of transparency and justice. He's never been transparent with us victims, never. He's always pulling something that we don't know anything about. And where's the justice for my daughter and the rest of these victims? It's ridiculous. And I'm not going to mention a name, but we have and you know who he is. We have a representative that in a newspaper article on April 5th of 2018 made some upsetting comments. He compares pro-life to the death penalty. It's unbelievable. My family is pro-life all the way. We're for it. An unborn has a right to live, to grow up, to thrive, and to make good choices. This murderer makes their own choices. They don't care. He also came with a catchy little phrase, from womb to tomb. Well, let me tell him something. My wife carried my precious daughter in her womb for 9 months. We nurtured her. We educated her. We taught her right from wrong. We taught her to make good decisions. And we cherished her and to be an asset to the community. Todd Wessinger sent her to her tomb. He was judge, jury, and executioner. He then lists his major issues. Number one, it's too expensive. It's insulting. It's insulting to us victims that you would put a price tag on our babies, on our daughters, on our sons, on our fathers, on our victims. It's insulting. Number two, that he doesn't want an innocent person to be executed. Well, let me tell you what. I consider myself an expert at this after 23 years. Without appellate system, the courts, the way they set up, and with my 23 years of experience in this court, that's ludicrous. I don't see how anyone, with all the appeals, we went through a total of about 18 or 20. So don't tell me that you're going to execute an innocent person. Let me shut up. And it's not a deterrent. It's his other one. It's not a deterrent. But I'd like to know where he gets his statistics from. There's been no executions in Louisiana for 9 years. And every one of you know that murder is rampant in Louisiana. He also said that his spiritual belief was that the death penalty is barbaric. Well, I'm going to tell you a couple of barbaric deals. My daughter was in a 6-by-6 foot cell. Give him the money while she was on 911. I won't tell, please don't kill me. Tweet, please don't kill me. You'll tell, shut up, bitch. And he killed her in cold blood. They've got a 2-year-old. Ask the parents of this 2-year-old that was burned alive by her boyfriend. Ask the son of the 85-year-old woman that was raped and beaten and burned and set on fire. Ask them if that's barbaric or not. To me, that's barbaric. Our governor's made his decision based on his personal beliefs, and not by the law. Undoubtedly, he knows better than all appellate courts and the U.S. Supreme Court. Our lives were not, are not, and will never be the same. We miss Stephanie very much and think of her every day. The governor can say whatever he wants. He can blame whoever he wants. He can go behind every door he wants to, but the buck stops with him. He's got to generate it. And everything that I have said here today, I can back it up with news articles. I'm just not blowing smoke at you. I'm telling the gospel truth. And we just want the governor to know we're not going away. None of us are going away. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guzzardo, and thank you for hold your applause. No. Thank you, Mr. Guzzardo, and thank you for your commitment. It is respected. We appreciate you.